The air smelled like blood and metal. Day pressed himself against the cold wall, making his small body even smaller. Around him, the other younglings moved with confidence he didn't have. They had claws. They had scales. They had armor that grew from their skin like natural shields. They had none of these things. He was 5 years old and very far from home. The room was massive, carved from black stone that seemed to swallow light. High above, viewing platforms jutted out from the walls. Creatures watched from those platforms. Big creatures with too many legs or too many eyes or bodies that looked like they were made of knives. They were the overseers. They ran this place. This place was called the Crucible. Day had learned that word 3 days ago when the metal ship brought him here. The tall aliens had spoken in clicking, hissing sounds that the translator chip in his ear turned into words. Welcome to the Crucible, human specimen. Here you will prove your species worthy, or you will die. His mother had cried when they took him. His father had tried to fight, but what could humans do against beings who crossed stars? Earth was new to the galaxy, weak, small. The Viscari Empire had found them, and the Viscari had rules. Every species must send their young to the Crucible. Every species must prove they deserve to exist. A loud sound filled the room. Metal scraping on metal. They jumped. The other younglings moved toward the center of the room, where something was rising from the floor. Platforms. 12 platforms, each with food on top. Real food. Day's stomach hurt from hunger. They hadn't fed anyone since yesterday. First trial, a voice boomed from above. The translator made it sound cold and sharp. Feeding rites. The strong eat. The weak starve. Begin. The room exploded into violence. A creature that looked like a small dragon with red scales lunged at the nearest platform. This was Vorn. Day had learned his name by listening. Vorn was bigger than Day, faster, stronger. His claws were like knives, and his tail had spikes that could break bones. Another youngling skittered forward on 6 legs. Ticks. She looked like a praying mantis made of black glass. Her arms ended in blade edges that could cut through the metal platforms. She moved so fast they could barely see her. There were others. A creature made of living crystal named Loom, who reflected light in rainbow patterns. A slug-like being that oozed acid. A floating thing with tentacles. 10 younglings in total, and all of them were built for this. All except Day. He stayed against the wall and watched. This was smart. His father had always said, when you don't understand something, watch first. Learn. Then act. Vorn reached the platform first and roared. The sound made Day's bones shake. 2 other younglings had wanted that platform, but they backed away from Vorn's claws. Vorn grabbed the food, chunks of meat that dripped with juice, and began eating. He didn't even look at the others. He knew he was stronger. Tix took another platform. Her blades clicked against the metal as she claimed it. The crystal being Loom simply stood on a platform and waited. No one wanted to fight something that could shatter into cutting edges. The smaller younglings fought over the remaining platforms. They watched them bite and claw and scream. One of them, a furry creature with big eyes, lost. It limped away bleeding. The medical bots would fix it later, probably. If it was worth fixing. Above, on the viewing platforms, the overseers watched. One of them was bigger than the others. His scales were darker, almost black, and scars covered his face. This was Dex, the War Master. He ran the Crucible. His eyes found Day against the wall. The human does not compete, Dex said. His voice carried across the room. It knows its place already. Another overseer spoke. This one was smaller, with lighter scales that had a blue tint. A female, they thought. Her name was Hay. It may be observing. Humans are reported to be strategic thinkers. It is weak, Dex said, like all its kind. This trial will be brief. But Day wasn't thinking about what they said. He was watching the feeding platforms. Most of the younglings were eating now. They guarded their food and growled at anyone who came close. But they were also messy. Pieces of food fell off the platforms. Scraps landed on the floor. And the younglings were so focused on protecting their prizes that they didn't notice. They waited. His stomach hurt so much it felt like it was eating itself. But he waited. Finally, the younglings began to slow down. Their stomachs were full. Some of them moved away from the platforms, satisfied. They had won. They had proven their strength. They moved. He stayed low and quiet. His human body was good at this, at least. Humans didn't have claws that clicked on metal. Their skin didn't scrape or rattle. Day crept forward like he used to creep when playing hide and seek with his sister. Back when everything was normal. Back when everything was normal. Back when home existed. He reached the first platform. Vorn was gone, sleeping off his meal in a corner. Pieces of meat lay scattered on the floor. Day grabbed them quickly and stuffed them in his mouth. They tasted strange, not like earth food, but his body didn't care. Food was food. He moved to another platform. More scraps. He ate those too. Tix saw him. Her compound eyes fixed on the small human gathering garbage. For a moment they thought she would attack. Her blades twitched. But then she turned away. He wasn't worth the energy. He was no threat. Day gathered more scraps. Enough to stop the pain in his stomach. Enough to survive one more day. Above, Hay made a note on her datapad. The human had fed itself without competing. Inefficient, but effective. Interesting. Nex snorted. It eats trash. This proves nothing. It eats, Hay said quietly. It survives. The lights in the room changed. Feeding time was over. The platforms sank back into the floor. The younglings were herded towards sleeping chambers, small rooms with hard beds and no comfort. This was the crucible. Comfort was not part of the lesson. They followed the others. His body hurt from where he had been shoved earlier. His clothes were torn. Blood from a cut on his arm had dried into the fabric. But he was alive. In the sleeping chamber. Day lay on his bed and looked at the ceiling. Somewhere far away, his mother was crying. His father was trying to find a way to bring him home. His sister was sleeping in his bed, holding his stuffed bear, wondering when he would come back. But Day was here, in the crucible, where every lesson ended in blood or dominance. He closed his eyes and thought about what he had learned today. Vorn was strong but predictable. Tix was fast but focused only on her own survival. Loom was powerful but slow. The others were similar. They were built for this place. Born for it. Trained for it since they hatched or budded or crystallized. But Day had something they didn't have. He had watched his father fix broken machines by understanding how they worked. He had learned from his mother that sometimes the smart choice was to step back and wait. He had played games with other human children where the rules changed, and you had to adapt. The Viscari thought strength was simple. Claws and teeth and size. But Day was human. And humans had spent millions of years being weaker than everything else on their planet. They survived anyway. They learned. They adapted. They won by thinking, not just by fighting. Tomorrow would bring new trials. More pain. More tests. But tonight, Day made a promise to himself. He would not just survive the crucible. He would change it. The human child closed his eyes and slept, while above, in the overseer chambers, Hay looked at her notes and wondered what this strange, weak creature would do next. 3 weeks had passed since the feeding trial. Day had scars now. They covered his arms and legs like a map of every lesson the Crucible had taught him. The medical bots fixed the worst injuries, the ones that would kill him, but they left the rest. Pain was part of the learning, the Overseer said. Pain taught respect, but pain also taught Day other things. Today's trial was different from the others. The youngling stood in front of a massive maze carved into the floor. The walls were tall, twice as high as even Vorn, and they gleamed with a strange energy that hurt to look at directly. At the center of the maze, according to the Overseers, was a token. The first youngling to bring the token back would receive extra food for 3 days. The last one to return would receive nothing. You have until the sun cycle ends, Dex announced from above. Begin. Vorn charged into the maze immediately. His claws scraped against the energy walls as he ran, leaving sparks in his wake. Tix followed, her 6 legs carrying her in a different direction. Loom moved slowly but deliberately, choosing a path and sticking to it with crystal determination. They stood at the entrance and looked up at the sun. It was artificial, he had learned. This whole place was built inside a massive ship that orbited a dead star. The sun moved on tracks, crossing the sky in exactly 12 hours. He had maybe 6 hours of light left. He entered the maze. The walls hummed with energy. When Day got too close, his skin tingled and hurt. He pulled back quickly. The walls were punishment for touching them. This was a maze you had to solve with your mind, not your body. From deeper in the maze, he heard Vorn roar in frustration. The dragon-like youngling had hit a dead end. There was the sound of claws on metal, angry and violent. Vorn was trying to break through the walls. It wouldn't work. They had seen these walls cut through solid steel during a different trial. They moved carefully, taking each turn slowly. At every junction, he stopped and thought. Left or right? Straight or back? His human brain worked differently than the others. They relied on instinct, on natural senses humans didn't have. But humans had something else. They had pattern recognition. They had the ability to make mental maps. After the first 10 turns, they started seeing the pattern. The maze wasn't random. It was built in a spiral, always turning right, always moving inward. Whoever designed it had made it logical. Maybe too logical. They started running. He took every right turn he could find. When he hit a wall, he backtracked to the last junction and tried again. His small human legs weren't as fast as Tix's 6 limbs, but he didn't waste time on wrong paths anymore. The sun moved across the sky. 2 hours passed. 3-Day found the center. The token sat on a pedestal, glowing with soft blue light. It was beautiful, like a piece of frozen water shaped into a diamond. They reached for it, then stopped. This was too easy. We looked around the center chamber. It was circular, with 6 exits leading back into the maze. On the floor, almost invisible, were pressure plates. They recognized them from the trap trials 2 weeks ago. Step on the plate, and something bad happened. Usually pain. The token sat directly on one of the plates. They smiled. The Crucible wanted to teach another lesson. Strength wasn't enough. You needed to think. Or maybe the lesson was that desire for reward made you careless. Either way, Day wasn't going to fall for it. He looked around the chamber for something to use. There, in the corner, a piece of metal debris, probably from a previous trial. Day picked it up and threw it at the token. The metal hit the pressure plate. The pedestal exploded with electricity. If Day had touched it, he would have been unconscious. Maybe dead. But now the trap was sprung. The electricity faded. Day walked forward carefully, testing each step. He reached the pedestal and picked up the token. It was warm in his hand and surprisingly light. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Multiple footsteps. Vorn burst into the chamber from one exit. Tix skittered in from another. Loom emerged from a third. their crystal body reflecting the blue light of the token. They all saw Day holding it. "Give it to me, human," Vorn growled. He was bigger up close. His teeth were the size of Day's fingers. "I found it first," Day said. His voice didn't shake. He was proud of that. "You are weak," Vorn said. "I am strong. The strong take what they want." Tix moved closer, her blade arms clicking. "The human cannot fight us all. Be smart, small thing. Give it up." Day looked at the three of them. They were right. He couldn't fight them. If this turned into a battle, he would lose. The token would go to whoever was strongest. Probably Vorn, but Day was human. And humans didn't just think about right now. They thought about later. "I'll make a deal," Day said. Vorn laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "Deals are for equals." "You are not my equal." "Maybe not," Day said. "But I'm the one holding the token. And I'm standing next to another pressure plate." He wasn't, but they didn't know that. "If you attack me, I drop it. The trap resets. Nobody gets it." This was a lie. They didn't know if the trap would reset. But it sounded true enough. Loom's crystalline voice chimed, thoughtful. "What deal do you offer, human?" "We go back together," they said. "All four of us. We tell the overseers we all found it at the same time. We share the reward." "Impossible," Vorn said. "There is one token. One winner. Is there?" They asked. "Did the overseers say only one could win? Or did we just assume that?" Silence. The younglings looked at each other. The Crucible always had one winner. That was how it worked. Since birth, they had been taught this. Every lesson ended in blood or dominance. One winner. Everyone else lost, but Day was right. The overseers had said the first to return got extra food. They hadn't said the others got nothing. That was just tradition. "Why would you share?" Tix asked. Her compound eyes studied Day with new interest. "What advantage does this give you?" "None," they admitted. "But it doesn't hurt me either. And maybe we're tired of hurting each other." It was a human thought. A strange thought. Foreign to this place, Vorn snorted. "Weakness." "Maybe," Day said. "But I'm the weak one with the token." They stood there for a long moment. The sun moved across the sky. Time was running out. Soon it would be dark, and the maze would become dangerous in new ways. Finally, Loom spoke. "I accept this deal. Sharing is logical." Tix clicked her mandibles. "I also accept. Fighting here wastes time." All eyes turned to Vorn. The dragon youngling growled, his pride fighting with his practical side. Finally, he nodded once, sharp, angry. "Fine, but this changes nothing, human. You are still weak." "Probably," they agreed. They left the center together. They led them through the maze, following his mental map in reverse. The others followed, surprised at how quickly the human navigated the turns. When they reached the exit, the sun was just touching the horizon. Beck stood waiting, his dark scales gleaming in the fading light. Beside him, Hay watched with her datapad ready. "Four arrived together," Bex observed. "Yet there is one token." "Who won?" "We all did," they said. He held up the token. "We found it together." "Impossible. There is one token. One winner." "The token was trapped," Loom explained. "The humans solved the trap. I provided direction. Tix scouted alternative routes. Vorn cleared obstacles. We worked as a unit." This was not entirely true, but it was true enough. And it sounded better than admitting they had made a deal. Dex's eyes narrowed. "You formed a pack." "We cooperated," Day corrected. "Is that against the rules?" Above, Hay made rapid notes on her datapad. This was unprecedented. Younglings in the Crucible competed. They didn't cooperate. Competition made them strong. Cooperation made them. What did it make them? Dex looked at Hay. She gave a small nod. There was no rule against it. The trial had been to retrieve the token before dark. They had done that. Very well, Dex said slowly. The extra rations will be divided among the four of you. It was less food than Day would have gotten alone. But it was more food than fighting would have given him. And something else had happened. Something the overseers didn't understand yet. The younglings had learned they could work together. That night, in his sleeping chamber, they felt something new. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. The Crucible was built on one idea: strength through dominance. But what if there was another kind of strength? What if humans could show them? Outside his door, Vorn walked past. The dragon youngling paused, looked at Day's chamber, then kept walking. He didn't attack, didn't threaten. Maybe that meant nothing. Or maybe, just maybe, it meant everything. The 6th week began with screaming. Day woke to the sound of alarms and running feet. The other younglings in the sleeping chambers were already moving, responding to instincts they didn't have. Something was wrong. Something bad. In the hallway, an overseer was shouting orders. Medical bots rushed past, their mechanical arms carrying equipment they didn't recognize. He followed the crowd to the medical bay. One of the younglings was dying. It was the furry creature with big eyes, the one who had lost the first feeding trial. His name was B.O., they had learned. B.O. had been getting weaker each week, losing more trials, receiving less food. The Crucible didn't care. Weakness was meant to be eliminated. Now Bo lay on a medical table, breathing in short, painful gasps. The medical bots worked on him, but their movements were slow. Routine. They would save him from death, keep him functional for more trials, but they wouldn't make him comfortable. Comfort wasn't part of the lesson. They pushed through the crowd of younglings. They parted for him, which was new. 3 weeks ago, they would have shoved him aside. But something had changed since the maze trial. They didn't see him quite the same way anymore. He reached Bo's side. The small creature's eyes found his, filled with pain and fear. "It hurts," B.O. whispered. The translator made his voice sound like wind through leaves. "I know," they said. He didn't know what else to say. What could you say to someone who was suffering because they weren't strong enough for this terrible place? An overseer grabbed Day's shoulder, hard. Claws dug into his skin. "Move, human. You are interfering with medical procedures." "He's scared," they said. "He needs someone with him. He needs to be stronger," the overseer said. "As do you. Return to your chamber." "No." The word hung in the air like a thrown knife. Younglings didn't say no to overseers. It wasn't done. It was unthinkable. The overseer's grip tightened. Pain shot through Day's shoulder. "You refuse an order?" "I'm staying with him," they said. His voice shook, but he didn't move. "You can punish me later, but right now, I'm staying." For a long moment, the overseer stared at him. Then Hay's voice cut through the tension. "Let him stay." The overseer turned. Hay stood in the doorway, her lighter scales catching the harsh medical lights. "War Master Dex has approved an observation period. I want to see what the human does." It was a lie. They could tell. Hay was making this up, overriding the other overseer's authority. But why? The overseer released Day and stepped back. "As you command, Supervisor Hay." Day turned back to Bio. The small creature was still breathing, still afraid. Day did something that felt natural to humans, but was completely foreign here. He took Bo's paw in his hand, gently, carefully. "You're going to be okay," Day said. "The bots are fixing you. Just breathe. I'm here." Bo's eyes widened. Touch in the Crucible meant violence. claws and teeth and dominance. But this touch was different. Soft. Meant to comfort, not to hurt. Why? B.O. asked. Why help me? I am weak. I lose. I am nothing. You're not nothing, Day said. You're B.O. You're trying. That's not nothing. Trying is not enough. The strong survive. The weak die. Where I come from, Day said, we have a different saying. We say everyone deserves kindness. Even the weak. Especially the weak. The medical bots finished their work. Dio would live. For now. The creature would face more trials, more pain, more chances to prove worth that the Crucible would never acknowledge. But something had happened in that medical bay. The other younglings had watched. They had seen Day offer comfort to someone who couldn't offer anything in return. No advantage. No strategic benefit. Just kindness. It confused them. Later that day, the trial was announced. This one was different from all the others. It was called the Chasm Trial. The younglings stood at the edge of a massive gap in the floor. It stretched 20 meters across and dropped into darkness that seemed to have no bottom. On the other side sat supplies, food, water, medicine, things they all needed. Scattered on their side of the chasm were materials, ropes made from metal cables, wooden planks, adhesive compounds, various tools and pieces of equipment. You will cross, Dex announced, or you will go without supplies for 3 days. You have 2 hours. Begin. Vorn was first to try. He gathered the longest planks and tried to make a bridge. But the planks weren't long enough, not even close. When he tried to lay them across, they fell into the darkness. Gone. Vorn roared in frustration and tried to jump. He got maybe 5 meters before gravity pulled him down. He only survived because the medical bots had set up catch nets below. He climbed back up, angry and embarrassed. Tix tried next. She attempted to use the cables like a rope swing, but her blade arms couldn't grip properly. She fell too. The nets caught her, but she returned defeated. Loom simply stood at the edge, calculating. The crystal being's mind worked through mathematical possibilities, but physics was physics. The gap was too wide. The materials were insufficient for any single youngling to cross. They sat down and looked at everything they had. The cables, the planks, the adhesive, the tools. In his mind, he started building something. Not a bridge, not a swing, something else. What are you doing, human? Loom asked, their voice chiming with curiosity. Thinking, they said. We can't cross alone. None of us can. But maybe we don't have to. He stood and started organizing the materials. Loom, you're the heaviest. I need you as an anchor on this side. Vorn, you're the strongest. I need your claws to secure cable on the other side. Tix, you're the fastest. I need you to carry the cable across using a pulley system. Impossible, Vorn said. Tix cannot cross the gap either. Not by jumping, they agreed. But what if we launch her? He started building. The other younglings watched, then slowly began to help. They directed them like his father had directed workers when building things. Put this here. Tie that there. Make it tight. They built a catapult. It wasn't pretty. It was made from planks and cables and adhesive that barely held everything together. But they had watched videos of ancient human siege weapons. He understood leverage and force and trajectory. Tix, you'll need to hold the cable in your mandibles, they explained. When you land on the other side, wrap it around that metal post we can see over there. Wrap it tight. Then we'll secure this end and create a traverse line. Everyone can cross. Tix looked at the catapult. At the gap. A day. This is insane. Probably, they agreed. But it might work. And if it doesn't, the nets will catch you. Same as before. Tix's compound eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she climbed onto the catapult platform. You are strange, human. But your strangeness has kept us fed. I will trust it once more. Day, Vorn, and Loom pulled the catapult arm back. The tension was enormous. Day's human muscles screamed with effort, but he held on. Ready? Day asked. No, Tix said. Do it anyway. They released. The catapult snapped forward with a sound like breaking bones. Tix flew through the air, a black blur of insect terror and determination. For a moment, she was suspended in space, cable trailing behind her like a tail. She hit the other side hard, rolled, then scrambled to the metal post. Her blade arms wrapped the cable around it once, twice, 3 times. She pulled it tight. It held. On Day's side, Loom wrapped their crystal body around a support beam. The cable stretched between them, sagging in the middle but strong enough. Day fashioned a simple harness from rope and metal clips. Who's first? Bo stepped forward, the small, weak creature who had been dying that morning. I will try. Day helped Bo into the harness and showed him how to slide across using the pulley system. Bo went slowly, terrified, but he made it. Then another youngling. Then another. Vorn went across. Then Loom. Finally, only Day remained. He crossed last, sliding hand over hand on the cable his human mind had helped them create. When he reached the other side, all the younglings were there. Waiting. They had the supplies. They had succeeded. But more than that, they had succeeded together. Dex watched from above, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Hay was smiling. Actually smiling. The human has corrupted them, Dex said. They work as a pack now. Is that corruption? Hay asked. Or evolution? It is weakness. Cooperation makes them dependent on each other. Or it makes them stronger than any individual could be alone. Dex turned to look at her. You defend the humans' methods. I observe them, Hay corrected. And I wonder what our empire might look like if we had learned to build bridges instead of only learning to jump. That night, the younglings shared the supplies equally. No fighting. No dominance displays. They simply divided everything fairly and ate together. Day sat with them, his small human body covered in new bruises from the day's effort. But he wasn't hungry, and he wasn't alone. Vorn sat down beside him. The dragon youngling didn't say anything for a while. Then, quietly, on my world, we eat the weak. I know, they said, but you are weak, and I do not want to eat you anymore. It was the strangest compliment Day had ever received. But somehow, it meant everything. Thank you, Vorn. You are still annoying, human. Day laughed. It was the first time he had laughed since coming to the Crucible. The sound was strange and bright in this dark place. And slowly, carefully, one by one, the other younglings started laughing too. The announcement came on the first day of the 8th week. Tomorrow, Dex's voice echoed through the sleeping chambers. You will face the blood circle. Every youngling froze. Even Day, who didn't fully understand what that meant, felt the fear that rippled through the room. Bo started shaking. Tix's blade arms clicked nervously. Even Vorn, who feared nothing, went very still. What's the blood circle? Day whispered to Lume. The crystal being's light dimmed. The final trial. 4 enter. 1 leaves. This is the tradition. This is how the Vascari prove worth. Day's stomach dropped. You mean death, Loom said simply. Or surrender, which is the same as death here. The blood circle determines who is worthy to continue. The others are eliminated. That night, no one slept. The younglings lay in their chambers, thinking about tomorrow. About survival. About which 3 of them would not see another day. They stared at the ceiling and thought about home. About his mother's smile. his father's laugh, his sister's terrible singing. He thought about Earth, a planet the Viscari considered weak and worthless. But Earth had never made children fight to the death. Maybe weakness wasn't what the Viscari thought it was. Morning came too quickly. The younglings were led to a different chamber, one they had never seen before. It was circular, with walls of black stone that seemed to absorb sound. In the center was a ring marked on the floor with red paint. Or maybe it was old blood. They didn't want to know. Above, the viewing platforms were filled with overseers. Not just the usual ones. Important ones with elaborate armor and scars that told stories of 1,000 battles. They had come to watch the younglings kill each other. Vex stood at the main platform. The blood circle is tradition. For 3,000 cycles, it has separated the worthy from the waste. Today, 4 of you will prove yourselves. He pointed at Day, Vorn, Tix, and Loom. You 4, enter the circle. Bio and the other younglings were led away. Day caught Bo's eye. The small creature looked terrified, relieved it wasn't him, but also sad. They had become something like friends, as much as friendship could exist in this place. Day walked into the circle with the others. The red line on the floor seemed to glow in the harsh lights. This was it. This was where the crucible stopped being about trials and became about murder. The rules are simple, Dex said. Fight until only one remains conscious. The winner continues training. The losers are sent home in disgrace. Or they die here. Either is acceptable. Vorn's claws extended. Tix's blades hummed with tension. Loom's crystalline body began to heat up, preparing for combat. They were ready. They were built for this. Day was not. Begin. Dex commanded. No one moved. Vorn looked at Day. The dragon youngling could kill him in seconds. One bite, one slash of those terrible claws. This should have been simple, but Vorn hesitated. Fight! Dex roared from above. This is the blood circle. Show your worth. They looked up at the overseer, at all the overseers watching with hungry eyes. They wanted blood. They wanted violence. They had built their entire civilization on the idea that strength came from dominance. That worth was measured in how well you can hurt others. And suddenly, Day was tired of it. No, he said. The word echoed in the chamber. Vorn, Tix, and Loom turned to look at him. What did you say? Dex demanded. I said no, Day repeated, louder this time. I won't fight them. You refuse the trial. I refuse to kill my friends. The chamber erupted. Overseers shouted. Some demanded Day be removed and punished. Others called for the trial to continue without him. But Dex raised a clawed hand for silence. Friends? Dex said the word like it tasted bad. They are not your friends. They are competitors, rivals. In the blood circle, there is no friendship. Only survival. Why? They asked. Who made that rule? It has always been this way. But why? They pressed. Why do we have to hurt each other to prove we're strong? On my world, we learned that working together makes us stronger than fighting alone. You've seen it. The maze, the chasm. We did better together. Those were training exercises, Dex said. This is the blood circle. This is real. It's all real, they said. And it's all wrong. He turned to the others. Vorn, you're the strongest here. You could kill me right now. But you haven't. Why? Vorn's tail lashed, uncertain. You are annoying, but you think of things I do not. You are useful, so I'm worth more alive than dead. Yes, they looked at Tix. And you. You're the fastest. You could cut me apart. But you don't. Why? Tix's compound eyes swirled with confusion. You helped me cross the chasm. You shared food when I was hungry. You showed kindness to Bio when he was weak. These things are valuable, more valuable than winning alone? Tix was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly she nodded. Day turned to Loom. The crystal being glowed softly in the harsh light. What about you? I am built to calculate outcomes, Loom said. I have calculated that cooperation produces better long-term results than competition. You have proven this multiple times. The data supports friendship over fighting. So why are we fighting? They asked. He looked up at Dex, at all the overseers. Why are you making us kill each other when we're better together? Because that is not how strength works, Dex said. His voice was hard, but they heard something else in it. Uncertainty, maybe. The strong dominate. The weak submit. This is natural law. No, they said. It's your law, and we don't have to follow it. He sat down. Right there in the center of the blood circle, the human child sat down on the floor and crossed his legs. What are you doing? Dex demanded. I'm not fighting, they said. I'm sitting. I'm refusing your test. Above, the overseers went wild. This had never happened. In 3,000 cycles, no youngling had ever refused the blood circle. It was unthinkable. Impossible. They looked at his companions. You can fight if you want. You can win. You can be the one who survives. But I won't. I'd rather die than hurt you. It was the most human thing he could say, illogical, emotional, defiant. And it changed. Everything. Vorn stared at the small, weak human sitting peacefully in the circle of violence. Then, slowly, the dragon youngling sat down too. His massive body folded onto the floor with a thump that shook the chamber. I also refuse, Vorn said. Tix clicked her mandibles in what might have been a laugh. This is insane. But she sat down too, her 6 legs folding beneath her. Loom's crystal body settled onto the floor last. The human has corrupted us all, the being said. I find I do not mind. 4 younglings sat in the blood circle. Not fighting, not competing, just sitting together, refusing to play by the rules that had governed this place for millennia. The chamber exploded with noise. Overseers shouted orders. Medical bots were activated in case punishment needed to be administered. Dex's roars shook the walls, but Hay stepped forward. Her voice cut through the chaos. War Master Dex, I invoke Protocol Zerva. The chamber went silent. What? Dex turned on her, fury in his eyes. Protocol Zerva, unexpected intelligence development. These younglings are demonstrating sapient-level cooperation and moral reasoning beyond predicted parameters. Continuation of this trial may violate the Galactic Accord on sentient rights. It was a legal move, a technicality, but it was enough. Dex's claws scraped against the platform railing. You would stop the blood circle? For this? I would stop it to observe what they do next, Hay said calmly. They have done something no younglings in our history have done. They have chosen each other over victory. That deserves study, not death. The other overseers murmured. Some agreed. Some were angry. But law was law, even in the Viscari Empire. Dex looked down at the 4 younglings sitting peacefully in his circle of violence. His expression was unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Very well. The trial is suspended. Remove them. Guards came and led the younglings away. They went quietly, together, while above them the Viscari Empire began to fracture over a question they had never asked before. What if strength didn't have to mean dominance? What if a weak human child had just shown them a better way? In his chamber that night, they lay awake and wondered what would happen next. He had broken their most sacred tradition. They might kill him for it. They might send him home in disgrace. But he had also saved his friends. And somehow, that felt like winning. They kept Day separated from the others for 3 days. His chamber was smaller now, with guards posted outside. He could hear them talking sometimes, their voices filtering through the walls. They were confused, angry. Some were curious. The human child had done something impossible, and the Vistari Empire didn't know what to do about it. On the fourth day, Hei came to see him. She entered the chamber alone, without guards. Her lighter scales seemed to glow in the dim light. She sat down on the floor across from Day, folding her legs in a way that reminded him of how humans sat. "You have caused quite a problem," she said. "I know," Day replied. "I'm sorry. Are you?" Day thought about it. "No, not really." Hei's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "Good. You should not apologize for having principles. Are you going to kill me?" "The High Command is debating that question right now," Hei said honestly. "Some want you dead. Some want you sent home as a failure. Some want to study you like a strange insect they found. What do you want?" Hei was quiet for a long moment. "I want to understand you. Your species. How you can be so weak and so strong at the same time. We're not that different from you," they said. "We just learned different lessons. Tell me about your world." So Day did. He told her about Earth, about cities built by millions of humans working together, about families who cared for their young, not because it made them strong, but because it made them happy, about schools where children learned to read and write and think, where the weak were protected instead of eliminated. He told her about wars too, because humans weren't perfect. They fought. They hurt each other, but they also tried to learn from their mistakes. They built peace after violence. They chose cooperation after competition failed. Your species failed their way to wisdom, Hei observed. "I guess so," they said. "We're still failing a lot, but we keep trying." "The Vistari do not fail," Hei said. "We have been strong for 3,000 cycles. We do not change. We do not question. Maybe that's why you stopped growing." Hei's eyes widened. No one spoke to a Vistari overseer like that. But instead of anger, she felt something else. Recognition. "You think we need to change?" "I think the blood circle is wrong," they said. "I think making children fight to prove they deserve to live is wrong. I think a civilization that can cross stars should be better than that. And if we don't change, then you'll stay the same forever," they said. "And the galaxy will move on without you. Because somewhere out there, there are other species learning what we learned. That cooperation is stronger than dominance. That mercy is more powerful than cruelty. That the weak, when given a chance, can become incredible." Hei stood up. "The High Command will make their decision tomorrow. I wanted to hear your thoughts before they did." She moved to the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, human child, you have already changed us. We just don't know it yet." That night, they dreamed of home. The next morning, they took him to the High Command chamber. It was enormous. Carved from the same black stone as the rest of the crucible, but decorated with battle honors and warrior symbols. 15 High Commanders sat on elevated platforms, their armor gleaming with medals and scars. Dex was there, his face set in hard lines. They stood to one side. Her datapad ready. At the center of it all stood Day. Small, human, 6 years old, and very far from his mother. "Human youngling," the lead commander spoke. Her scales were white with age, and her voice carried the weight of centuries. "You have disrupted the crucible. You have refused the blood circle. You have corrupted other younglings with your ideas of cooperation and mercy. What do you have to say?" They thought about lying, about apologizing, about telling them what they wanted to hear. But he was human, and humans were terrible at staying quiet when something was wrong. "I say you're making a mistake," Day said. His voice was small in the huge chamber, but clear. "You think strength is about hurting others. But that's not strength. That's just violence. Real strength is protecting others, helping them, building things together that no one could build alone. Bold words from a weak creature, Dex said. I am weak, they agreed. Humans are weak. We're slow. We're soft. We don't have claws or armor or venom. But we built cities that touched the clouds. We sent ships to other worlds. We wrote music and poetry and mathematics that explain the universe. We did all of that while being weak, because we learned to work together. You failed most of our trials, another commander noted. I survived all of them, they corrected. Not by being strong, by being smart, by adapting, by helping others and letting them help me. I'm alive because of cooperation, not competition. The commanders murmured among themselves. Hay stepped forward. If I may speak, she said, I have studied the human's performance across 8 weeks. He has the lowest physical performance scores of any youngling in Crucible history. He should have died in the first week. And yet he sits before us, the lead commander observed. Yes, Hay said, because he has the highest cooperation scores ever recorded. He has formed bonds with younglings from 4 different species. He has solved trials through strategic thinking that our warriors would not have considered. He has introduced concepts of mercy and shared success that have improved the overall survival rate of his cohort. She pulled up data on her pad. Since the human arrived, injuries among younglings have decreased by 40%. Food waste has dropped by 30%. Problem-solving efficiency has increased by 60%. The younglings are not weaker for his influence. They are stronger. They refused the blood circle, Dex growled. They elevated themselves above it, Hay countered. They chose a future where all 4 could continue instead of a tradition where 3 must die. Is that not strategic thinking at its finest? The chamber fell silent. The commanders looked at each other, centuries of certainty crashing against new data. Finally, the lead commander spoke. Human youngling, what would you have us do? They hadn't expected that question. I don't know. I'm just a kid. But maybe you could try something different. Maybe you could teach younglings to work together instead of fighting. Maybe you could measure success by how well they cooperate instead of how well they dominate. Maybe you could give the weak ones a chance to find their own kind of strength. And if this makes them soft, vulnerable, it won't, they said. Humans have wars. We have enemies. But we also have allies. We survive because we're better together. The strongest human alone can't do what 100 humans working together can do. Maybe it's the same for you. The lead commander stood. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. The High Command has debated for 3 days, she said. We have considered execution. We have considered expulsion. We have considered quarantine of the human homeworld to prevent contamination of our ways. Day's heart pounded. This was it. This was where they decided if humanity lived or died. But we have also considered change, the lead commander continued. For 3,000 cycles, the Viscari have been strong. We have conquered worlds. We have built an empire. But we have not grown. We have not evolved. Perhaps it is time, she looked at Day. Human youngling, you and your companions are hereby released from the Crucible. The blood circle is suspended pending review. The other younglings will be allowed to complete their training without lethal trials. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Dex looked like he had been struck. Furthermore, the lead commander said, humanity will be offered limited partnership with the Viscari Empire. Not as subjects. Not as slaves. As allies. We will study your ways as you study ours. Perhaps together, we will find a strength neither could achieve alone. They couldn't believe what he was hearing. You mean, we're free? You are free. Your species is safe. and the crucible will never be the same. They brought the other younglings to see him. Vorn, Tix, Loom, and Bio. They had been waiting, not knowing if Day was alive or dead. When they saw him, their reactions were different but equally intense. Vorn roared with joy and nearly crushed Day in what might have been a hug. Tix clicked her mandibles rapidly in excitement. Loom glowed with bright, happy light. And Bio, small weak Bio, cried tears that the medical bots didn't understand. "You did it," Bio said. "You changed everything." "We did it," they corrected. "We sat down together. That's what changed everything." A week later, Day stood in a transport ship, looking at the crucible one last time. Hay stood beside him. "Will it really change?" Day asked. "Or will they go back to the old ways when I'm gone?" "I don't know," Hay admitted. "Change is slow. There will be resistance. Dex and others like him will fight to preserve tradition. But you have planted a seed, human child. And seeds grow. What will you do?" "I will run the new crucible," Hay said. "One that trains younglings in cooperation as well as competition. One that measures strength by what they build, not just by what they destroy. One that remembers a small human who taught an empire that mercy can be powerful." The transport engines activated. It was time to go home. "Thank you, Day," Hay said, "for showing us a better way." "Thank you for listening," they replied. The transport lifted off. Through the window, Day watched the crucible shrink into the distance. That terrible place where every lesson had ended in blood or dominance. Until a human child stood at the center and chose differently.